Hello, friends. Sleep Tight Stories, Sleep Tight Relax, and Sleep Tight Science are now available to play on Story Button, the device that makes it easy to listen to our shows and more without having to use a phone or tablet. This month, you can save $10 at storybutton.com when you use the code SLEEPTIGHT. Story Button, the home of imagination. Hello, friends, and welcome to Sleep Tight Stories. Every week, we celebrate our supporters through shoutouts and personal birthday messages. We think this is also a fun way for us to hear about all the amazing places that you, our listeners, come from. Happy belated birthday to Miles B. of Healdsburg, California, who turned 7 on March 13th. Love your mom, dad, and Gio. Happy belated birthday to Thomas in Richmond, who turned 4 on March 20th. Mama, Dada, Henry, and Mars love you very much. Happy belated birthday to Jackson, who turned 11 on March 22nd. Your daddy and sister Lulu love you and celebrate you on your birthday. Happy belated birthday to Juliet from Niles, Michigan, who turned 5 on March 23rd. Love Mom, Dad, and Matthias. Happy 8th birthday to Evie on March 24th. Mommy, Daddy, Theo, and your whole family love you so much. Happy birthday to Eva Luna, who is turning 8 on March 25th. Mom, Dad, and your sister Elena would like to give you butterfly kisses and the best birthday wishes. Happy birthday to Simon, who is turning 5 on March 25th. From Mom, Dad, and Ira. Happy birthday to Charlotte from Los Angeles, California, who is turning 10 on March 26th. Mommy loves you so much. Happy birthday to Noah, who is turning 9 on March 27th. You are our awesome artist, and Mommy, Daddy, and Chi-Chi love you. Happy birthday to Sarah Fowler in Newfoundland, who is turning 9 on March 27th. From Mom, Dad, and sister Audrey, who love you very much. Happy birthday to Rin Mian in Sausalito, California, who is turning 7 on March 27th. Happy 5th birthday to Theo in Guelph, Ontario, who has a birthday on March 27th. Mommy, Daddy, Isabella, Oma, and Morfar love you infinity plus infinity. And happy birthday to Lily Brownbill from Durban, South Africa, who is turning 8 years old on March 30th. Mama, Mima, and Papa love you very much. Happy birthday to you all. Now, on to our story. This is the final chapter of the Magical Book of Dreams. A new adventure featuring Ester and Araya will come later in the year. Ester cannot believe it. She has finally made it to her father. After all this time, she is really here. Ester opens the door, and after they hug, they get ready to leave the castle. They head back out the way they came in, but there are so many of them now, and they are moving slowly. Next thing they know, they can hear something moving near them. The Magical Book of Dreams, Part 31. Ester stood still, unable to move. There he was. After all these years, she had finally found him. The man who had told her stories, whose picture she would look at every time she went to wash, was right in front of her. It seemed like a dream. Though worn by years of hardship and full with an unkept beard, his face sparkled with the familiar warmth in his eyes. "Ester," he breathed out, his voice dry. "Is it you, Princess? Has my little star come to light up the darkness?" Their eyes locked, emotions swirling between them, acknowledging years of separation with a glance. Tears started to flow. They reached out, hands touching cold metal. The bars of his cell stood firmly between them. Ester quickly wiped the tears from her eyes as good magic began to rise within her, sensing the need for its help. Strong emotions seemed to be the trigger. Ester focused on the lock that kept her father imprisoned, extending her hand toward it. She whispered softly, "Please, please let this be the key." To her amazement, the lock clicked open, as if recognizing her command. The good magic didn't stop there. It flowed from her like a gentle wave, reaching out to unlock the other cells, freeing the prisoners who watched in disbelief. As the cell door swung open, Ester stepped forward. "Father?" she said nervously. Her father looked at her with tears still in his eyes. "Ester, my princess," he replied, his dry voice thick with emotion. They hugged, trying to make up for years of being apart. Ester was overwhelmed. "I've found him. After all this time, we're together again," she thought. "Now we can go home. But how do we escape? How do we bring everyone to safety?" Her good magic had unlocked the doors, yet the path to freedom was not guaranteed. Meanwhile, Araya was assessing the situation, her mind racing through their options for escape. She checked the hallway for guards. There were none. But it was an unknown route, and there would surely be opposition. We still have the advantage of surprise, she thought, but we must move quickly and quietly. She turned to Ester and her father, saying, "We haven't caught the attention of any guards, but we need to leave now. I suggest we leave the way we came, but we must be swift and silent. The passageway is narrow, so it won't be easy." Turning to her father, Ester said, "We'll get you and everyone else out of here." Her father, strength returning to his voice, replied, "Lead the way, my brave princess. I never lost faith in you. I knew you would come." Together, they led the newly freed prisoners through the open area to the narrow passageway. Ester's father, despite being frail himself, helped others who were too weak to move on their own. Ester stayed close to him, her good magic casting a light through the darkness. She knew they still had a way to go, but she had hope with her father by her side and Araya leading the way. They moved as quickly as they could through the narrow, dark passage that had brought them into the castle, the sound of their own labored breathing loud in their ears. Some coughed or stumbled, which Araya feared might announce their presence if anyone was listening. The warm light from Ester's magic cast long shadows on the walls, making the cramped space feel even more confined. The air was thick with the musty odor of damp stone and the faint, lingering scent of mold. The farther they went, the more they could hear the distant sound of water, hinting at an underground river. Halfway down the passageway, a sudden clatter echoed through the darkness. The unmistakable sound of guards wearing armor climbing the stairs toward them. You could hear their voices. They were looking for something. Everyone heard them, and some started to panic. "We can't continue downward," Ester quickly whispered to Araya, who was just ahead. "There is a door just below. If I can open it, we should all be able to slip through. We might have luck on our side. If what approaches us knew we were here, they would be moving with much more haste," Araya said, as she rushed to the old wooden door. After Araya opened the door with an unfortunate loud creaking sound, Ester led the group through, her hands growing brighter to reveal a rough passageway, much wider than the one they had entered from. In the distance, she could see what looked like an underground river, with its waters flowing downward. "Hurry," Araya whispered, ushering all the prisoners into the new passageway and closing the door. She stood there pushing on it, waiting, hoping that they hadn't been discovered. Ester's father whispered to everyone to be quiet as they waited for the guards to walk by. The sound of the water was loud, perhaps loud enough to drown out the noise of their movement. Araya put her ear to the door, listening as the guards' clanging sounds and grumbles and growls passed by. They had not been heard. "We won't have long before they notice we have all escaped. If they sound the alarm, it will be incredibly difficult to avoid the guards, Scalix and Chickalors," Ester's father said. "We can't go down the passageway. There might be more guards coming up, or worse," Araya replied. "Then we have no other choice," Ester's father said. "This water must be used to flush out waste in the castle. It likely empties into a small lagoon below." Ester agreed. They carefully climbed into the cold, flowing water, letting the current carry them away from their prison. The river moved quickly, and soon they were whisked through tunnels beneath the castle walls. As they rode the river's currents, they tried to keep their heads above the water, gasping for air whenever they could. It was a wild, bumpy ride. It wasn't designed for comfort. Finally, the river spat them out through an opening at the base of the castle walls into the open air. They landed with a splash in the shallow lagoon, surrounded by the foul smells of the castle's waste. The stench was overwhelming, but there was no time to dwell on it. Quickly, they scrambled out of the water, helping each other to stand and brush off the worst of the muck. With no time to lose, Ester led the way toward the dry riverbed she and Araya had used before, moving away from the castle as fast as they could. They were soaked, cold, and tired, but the fear of being caught pushed them forward. Then, suddenly, an alarm bell rang out from the castle, loud and clear in the quiet of the night. Scalix, Chickalors, and other unknown creatures could be heard howling in the distance. Their escape was not going to go unchallenged. The group quickened their pace, hearts pounding with the fear of being caught. Their feet pounded against the ground, but the going was too slow. No longer worried about stealth, Ester continued to light the way, making the path ahead less of a shadowy challenge. Then, the unmistakable sounds of the Scalix growling and the Chickalors yipping filled the air, signaling that the creatures had picked up their scent and were in pursuit. "We have to move faster," Araya called out over her shoulder. I know. Keep everyone together," Ester replied. The path was treacherous, lined with loose stones that threatened to trip them up, and the same thick, thorny underbrush that they had struggled with before clawed at their clothes. Despite the obstacles, they pushed forward. The sounds of the Chickalors and Scalix grew ominously closer, the growls and snaps sending shivers down their spines. As they approached the hidden entrance to the cave, Ester glanced back to see the dark shapes of the creatures emerging from the shadows. She could smell their foul stench. "They're right behind us," she shouted. "Just a little further, into the cave," Araya responded, trying to keep the panic at bay. She knew the cave was their only chance. With the entrance in sight, they mustered every ounce of energy left in them. Surging forward, they dove into the cave's mouth, almost falling over each other. The sounds of the Scalix and Chickalors ceased abruptly as they crossed the threshold, the creatures unwilling or unable to follow them into the depths. Inside, Ester and Araya didn't pause. Ester's magic lit their way. They moved deeper until the familiar glow of the Luminae appeared, surrounding them with a gentle light and a sense of safety. "We made it," Ester gasped, her relief palpable as she leaned against the cool cave wall. Araya, ever vigilant, scanned the group, counting heads. "Everyone's here. We're safe, thanks to you and your magic, Ester." Her father, still catching his breath, looked at Ester. "My daughter, the princess," he murmured, his voice filled with pride. The Luminae glowed around them, their light soothing the ragged edges of their fear. For a moment, the cave was a haven, a respite from the dangers they had faced. But outside, the night remained filled with threats. "We can't stay long. Whatever kept them from following us may not keep them for long," Araya said after a moment, her mind already on their next move. Having caught her breath, Ester turned to her father with a spark of hope in her eyes. "Now we can start the journey home, Father," she said, thinking of finally reuniting her family. Her father shook his head gently. "Ester, my brave daughter, I can't go home. Not yet," he said, his voice heavy with a burden she didn't fully understand. "The people need me here, and they need you." Ester's smile faded. "What do you mean? I thought we could leave this darkness behind once we were reunited." Her father reached out, taking her hand in his. "The fight to bring light to the gray is just beginning. You've shown incredible strength and courage, Ester. The people of this realm need a leader to guide them out of the darkness. They need you to lead them." Ester stood in stunned silence, her father's words repeating in her mind. She had longed for this reunion, imagining it as the end of her journey. But now, faced with the reality of her father's words, she realized the journey was far from over. It was evolving into something much bigger than herself. All the messages and guidance received had led to this point. "I lead them?" Ester whispered, the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. "But how? I only wanted to find you, to bring us back together." Her father squeezed her hand. "You have good magic, Ester, a rare gift. You've already begun to change the realm. The people have seen your power, and in you, they see hope." As Ester stood in the cave, surrounded by the freed prisoners and the soft light of the Luminae, the reunion with her father, instead of marking an end, signaled the beginning of a greater challenge. Her heart was heavy with the responsibility her father described. "Is this my destiny? Can I be the leader they need?" she thought, the enormity of leading a realm out of darkness dawning on her. Ester knew her choice was very important, not just for her, but for everyone living in the shadows, hoping for a brighter day. Everyone in the cave looked at her, quietly waiting. They believed she could be their hero. Now, she was trying to believe it too. And that is the end of our story. Good night. Sleep tight.